oh, we have our first big movie of 2025, I guess. Pretty much the first movie that came out this year that's not either a sort of late release from 2024 or a garbage, early January movie that we usually get at the beginning of every year. No, instead this is a very unique Steven Soderbergh movie called Presence, a brand new sort of horror film, if you read the title of this video. Not really a horror film, but it's a high-concept movie that essentially takes the horror genre, at least the haunted house genre, and turns it on its head by saying, hey, what if we watched pretty much Paranormal Activity, but from the perspective of the ghost? An idea that on paper is very intriguing. On paper, it also sounds like it can make a very boring movie. But Steven Soderbergh does it here, and overall, before I get into the actual details, I think he did a pretty damn good job. Now, this concept in itself has very much interested me when I heard this movie was coming, because me personally, I'm somebody who, my goal, my dream, is to work in film myself. I've made movies, I make movies, and an idea I've had on the back burner for years is pretty much this, to do a movie, an idea of, what if you did a haunting movie, but you showed the perspective of the ghost? We've never really seen anything like that. My perspective on that concept, though, was it would have to be a comedy. I mean, you can't really do a dramatic version of that story. It would have to be goofy. It would have to be hilarious, because what is the movie? It's just a bunch of dudes walking around like, ooh, the chair's moving. Like, it's goofy. It's just gonna be dudes fucking with people, right? That's what that movie would be. But this is clearly not that. This is not a comedy. This is a full-on drama? It's like a family drama movie that is almost on the verge of being melodramatic, I would even describe it as. It's a story that really kind of plays out like a stage play, and the ghost is not really much of a participant, he's more of an observer. The whole film is literally shot from the first-person perspective of this presence, of this spirit. The film uses a very wide lens. It almost kind of looks like a 360 camera, but you're only seeing like the 180. So the whole thing is shot very wide. There's no close-ups. You never feel up and close to these characters unless the ghost gets up and close to them. But you really feel like you're watching a stage play, which is how it's shot. From the beginning of this movie, I thought that might lead to the film being relatively boring. I mean, there was another film that came out last year that kind of handled this concept of taking a horror film and telling it from the perspective of the horror thing, right? That film was called In a Violent Nature. It was essentially a Friday the 13th movie from the perspective of Jason Voorhees, and I found that movie just to be very dull and boring. The concept got old after a while, and I feared that would happen here. Just the whole thing being a perspective film, wide lens, how much can you really do? And the film takes the angle of, like the title of this video says, not being a horror movie, not trying to scare the audience, because how do you do that? How do you bring terror to the audience in the way that you would in a normal, sort of haunting house movie without seeing the film from the perspective of the people that are scared? Because the audience feels fear when the people on screen are feeling fear. If the thing that we are is the ghost that's instilling fear, how do we get afraid of that, right? You can't be afraid of yourself, or can you? See, this is why this concept, you could dive deeper into it, but this film doesn't do that. This film is a family drama. We're not watching this to be horrified or really thrilled. The film is not really a thriller until its third act. You can kind of consider it one. So I will say the marketing for this film, kind of scummy, Neon. You marketed this whole thing like a dark horror thriller to get general audiences in. My guess is that general audiences are not going to like this movie because they're expecting a horror movie and they're getting something very, very different. It is a family drama. Family drama is what this movie is. So I suspect that Rotten Tomatoes audience score probably going to be down low. Definitely below the critic score, if I had to guess. But we're following this family, this mother, husband, and son and daughter who have moved into this house, and they all have their own problems. We primarily follow the daughter, who is going through a very interesting place in life. She has these two best friends who have recently passed away, and she is not handling that well. And because of her grief, she's more connected to the presence in the house than anybody else. And her relationship with her brother, who's just kind of a douchebag, and her relationship with her mom, who's a very interesting character, and her dad, who's like the greatest dad ever, they are all put out on display for the audience, and a lot of the time, it's done exceptionally well. All of these characters have their moments to shine and feel fleshed out enough, specifically the daughter. But there's another angle with the characters. It's the main, drawback of this film, is that there are times that these characters are just very unbelievable. I mean, not really the daughter. She's probably the best character in the film, but like the brother. There's a whole scene where he's bragging about this prank that he pulled to his mom, and it's just unbelievably awful. I mean, just his character is the worst in this scene, which is the point, but it is so bad. It's almost like if he went on screen and started bragging about being a Nazi. Like, it just would not happen. Lucy Liu's character is almost at times such a mediocre mother that it makes the film feel unbelievable. And some of the dialogue at times in this movie feels really cookie cutter. There are moments that should be extraordinarily emotional that are sometimes drawn back because the dialogue feels like it was written by a 13-year-old. There are other scenes where the dialogue is perfectly written, so it's kind of weird. And the screenwriter here does a great job. I mean, he is a well-known screenwriter, and for the most part, the film is written well, but it's so clear this was a concept-first movie, and they sort of surrounded a story around that concept that sometimes really, really works. It works enough to really get you engaged, but sometimes you're like, that's a little cringy. There's a scene even with the daughter where she's talking about her grief and she's like, it feels like I'm in a deep hole and there's mud on the walls and I can't climb out. It's like, yeah, this was written on Wattpad by a 14-year-old. There's this other character, Ryan, played by West Mulholland, who plays a pretty big role in the movie. Just want to say, great job to that actor. He's incredible in this film, and that character was easily, like, my favorite part of the film. I don't want to say why, you know, this spoiler stuff and how he gets involved and what's going on with him, but he's really, really great in this movie. Lucy Liu, who plays the mom, I love Lucy Liu. I almost feel like she could have done more here. I almost feel like this material, this story with the family, what the family's going through, the whole, how the presence gets involved and how she sees things, I think there could have been more done there to really make this movie a little bit better. She could have really, they could have pulled a lot out of her and really had one of the more standout performances of 2025, but the year's just starting, of the last couple years. There you go. I also think the twists in this movie, they're a little unbalanced. For one part, there's one twist in this film I love. It's a big twist that happens right in the third act with a specific character that when it happened, I said, oh, that makes a lot of sense. That's really dark, and it brings a lot of what's happened in the movie together in a really brilliant way. It caught me off guard, and I said, okay, yeah, that's a great, great twist. There's another twist that happens in the final moments of the film that have to do with the overall concept of the movie, where they try kind of explaining things a little bit more. That twist, although I think audiences are really gonna like it, it is super emotional. It's also so predictable, because there's literally a moment in the middle of the film where they pretty much tell you exactly what's going to happen. It would be like if in like the middle of Empire Strikes Back, you know, some random character like from the Empire looked in the camera and said, you know, there's rumors that Darth Vader used to be a Jedi back in the days of the Clone Wars. He was a great Jedi. One would even say that he was so great he could even walk on skies. Like, wink, wink, like, yeah, they pretty much look at you and tell you the twist of the movie in the middle. I remember distinctively when this character looks at the camera and literally has this moment, I was like, oh, that's where the movie's going. You didn't have to tell me. That would have been a cool thing to figure out, but thanks for, I guess, telling me in the middle of the movie. But I don't know, if you're, like, out for a piss during this moment or you're checking your phone, then when the big twist happens at the end, you'll go, oh, that's nuts, yeah. But for me, I was like, oh, yeah. They said that was gonna happen, and it did. I should have believed them. So because of that, I don't know if the ending hit me as hard as it should have, but it is a beautiful twist in the way that it's written. I'm sure as, you know, if you read the script, it probably reads more beautiful. Overall, though, I really enjoyed this movie. I think the concept of this, although it's not something that I think I need to see again, I think it was really, really cool. It was done well and done in a way that didn't feel like a bore, which was my biggest fear going into this. I thought this movie would be boring. Turns out that it wasn't, because they have a really good story here with a family that has a great dynamic, actors that are all bringing their A game, and just a concept that really, really works. It has twists that make the story feel satisfying, that make it feel emotional. You have really good acting for people like Lucy Liu, good visuals, you know, the limitations of what the camera can actually do here, being this wide lens camera, having to move around, and it can't really do too much, but they do enough to make it feel cinematically appealing. This movie just does a lot surprising and a lot right, which I really enjoyed. The worst part about this movie is the lying marketing campaign that forced me to make this title, to lie to all of you, to make you think this is going to be a negative video, because the title's like, this is not a horror movie, I'm very angry about this. Well, guess what? The same way my marketing campaign to get you to click on this video was kind of bullshit, their marketing campaign marketing this as a horror movie was also bullshit. So bullshit goes around. I really enjoyed Presents, though. I will give this a 4 out of 5 and a big recommendation to go check this out if you're hitting the movie theaters this weekend. Thank you guys for watching. What do you guys think of Presents? Let me know down below. Make sure to make your own opinion on films. Don't listen to me. I get things wrong sometimes, or I get things wrong from your perspective. So let me know if you think I'm wrong. Tell me I'm stupid. I'll see you guys in the next one.